Litigation 101 by me. So you have pleadings, and you have admin, and you have discovery, and there's expert, pre-trial, trial. So this is going to be a complaint or petition, and then there's going to be an answer or motion to dismiss, motion to strike, motion for more statement. Now, in federal court, if you have claims, they're called counterclaims. In state court, it's called cross claims. So this is D.
So what is that one? Expert?
Expert pretrial trial.
Okay.
So this is the pleading stage. You will have a complaint that starts a lawsuit or a petition. The defendant will either answer or move to dismiss, move to strike, move to for a more definitive statement. When you answer, and if you want to sue them back, federal court is counterclaim, state court is cross-claim. And just so you know, I'm going to do this down here. Motions. So ordinarily, you'll have a motion, you'll have an opposition, and you'll have a reply. In some jurisdictions, there are surreplies and oppositions. Like in Texas, for example, they do that. In addition to that, opposition, reply, these are, and the motion will take different forms. It'll be like MSJs, motions to compel, motions to strike, I'm trying to think, but that's, and every type of motion has a different, requirements. So like a motion for summary judgment, you need a notice, and state and federal is different. But these are the general categories. I can do subcategories later. So admin, what happens in the admin phase? There's a CMC, there's a protective order, there's ESI, there's a schedule, there's mediation. This is sort of, so once the pleadings become settled, then you deal with the admin stuff. There's a conference that's set, you have to do CMC statements, you have to do a protective order, you have to do an e-discovery, ESI stipulation, you have to agree on a schedule, there'll be a date for mediation, and so this is all about the schedule and sort of putting the things in place so that you can continue to the next phase. This is the longest phase. This goes from anywhere from 1 to 2 years, sometimes more. And let me tell you the different types of discovery. There's notices of deposition. That is when you're asking to ask people questions under the penalty of perjury. There is subpoenas. What is the difference between a notice of deposition and a subpoena? A subpoena is to non-parties. Notices of deposition are to parties. So for example, in the ESC case, Shelley Gaynor was a third party, so we did a subpoena for her. ESC is a party, so we would do a notice for them. Then you have ROGs, and you have RFAs, and you have RFPs. These are, and then with respect to this, you know, you'll have responses, right? But this is essentially the discovery phase where people are pretty much duking everything out. You'll also see privilege logs. And the admin side or whatever, I can put it in discovery or admin. You usually have to do initial disclosures. And what is that? Initial disclosures, there's a rule on it where you have to provide like who's important, what documents do you know about, do you have insurance, you know, you sort of provide preliminary information. And that's what initial disclosures are. And patent litigation is different. I can do that separately because patent litigation has other disclosures other than initial disclosures. They'll have invalidity contentions. They'll have infringement contentions.
Quantum.
They'll have damages contentions. In fact, Texas doesn't have damages contentions, but the Northern District does. And depending on whether you're the plaintiff or defendant, you know, depending on what you are, that's what you'll have to do. So like a defendant will do invalidity contentions. Some jurisdictions have infringement contentions and non-infringement contentions, meaning they do their infringement contentions, and then when you're a defendant, you respond to those infringement contentions and explain why you don't infringe. So patent is its own beast, and then there are document productions and disclosures that are part of all of that. But for normal litigation, it starts with initial disclosures, and you don't have all those other disclosures that you have to do. I can do patent litigation some other time. We're not doing it right now, so you don't really have to worry about it, but when we get back into it, I can go through all that with you. And there's like, so then discovery, that's what this is. So then experts. There's expert depositions, because those are different beasts, and there's reports. And then in the report, sometimes you do productions. But that's all expert discovery is. And then pre-trial is a whole lot of stuff. Motions in limine, pre-trial, trial brief. Trying to think if there's anything else. Motions to strike. But you have to do a ton of stuff, like depot designations, you have to identify your exhibits. That's what's going on there. And then trial is just trial. There's a whole lot of shit going on there. But that's essentially it. So then, if you guys are cool, then what I'm gonna do is like, then you have the admin motion. And there are two types. One is motions to seal, and the other is everything else. So what falls in an admin motion that's not a motion to seal? And that is stuff like extensions, changing of the schedule, what else? What else have I asked? Moving a hearing, procedural shit. Usually or extension of page limits, you know, shit like that. So under motions to seal, there are two types. There is our stuff and their stuff. And depending on which one, you know, their stuff, it's very easy. Our stuff is a little bit harder. So are you guys cool with all this?
Yeah, I think so.
Any questions at all? Okay,
No.
So then, for example, with the motions to seal, right? So motions to seal in general, you're required to file the sealed version and then the redacted version. In some courts, like Texas, you don't even have to do a redacted version.
Well, that's better.
Yeah, it's way better. Or there's a deadline to do it. And so, it's two components there. But that's all I can think of at the moment. I mean, that's
Okay.
pretty much a very high level overview of the different stages. And usually a case will go to trial in 3 years. Pre-COVID,
3 years.
yeah.